Currently, only 2 of the 9 justices on the Supreme Court are women, and I think that that women, if we are going to have equal rights, and if we are going to be respected equally as human beings on the same basis as men, we've got to get into positions of elected officials, and we've got to become the judges of this country. Because right now, with male-dominated legislatures and male-dominated and often right-wing dominated federal courts, we are really seriously being pushed backwards in our rights and our access to justice.
Terry O'Neill, I want to thank you very much for being with us, President of the National Organization for Women, and thanks too to Lynn Paltrow, Founder and Executive Director of National Advocates for Pregnant Women. Your website? www.advocatesforpregnantwomen.org. And thank you for joining us in Women's History Month as well, 2 women who are making history. As we turn now to Chile to speak with another woman, unfortunately, about the horror that's taken place in Chile. The death toll from Saturday's massive earthquake has reached close to 800 and is expected to rise. An estimated 2 million people were affected by the earthquake, which was the worst disaster to hit Chile in half a century. Aid is yet to reach many areas hardest hit by the quake, including the southern city of Concepcion, which accounts for nearly half the death toll. Officials estimate that between 100 to 500 people in the city are still missing. Many residents are short of food and have seen their water and electricity supplies cut off. Security in the city remains a key concern after shops and homes were looted Monday and police made a large number of arrests. Chilean President Michelle Bachelet deployed some 14,000 troops to the area, and an 18-hour curfew has been imposed. One city resident called on Bachelet to come to Concepcion herself instead of sending soldiers.
She should come. She should come here. We need help. We don't have anything here. We are wearing borrowed clothes. We have nothing. We need help.
Meanwhile, President Bachelet has held a news conference with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who arrived in Santiago and pledged U.S. support. Bachelet, who will be replaced by President-elect Sebastián Piñera in 2 weeks, said reconstruction would be costly.
There are international experts who have spoken of $30 billion US, but really we believe that we need to have more information to be able to do a complete cost analysis. One of the topics I have discussed with Secretary of State Clinton is the possibility to look, and I will discuss this with the President-elect as well, the possibility to count on funds or credit on favorable terms, to be able to begin the reconstruction, which is going to take a long time and be very expensive.
Many Chileans have complained that scores of deaths could have been avoided had the government responded faster. The earthquake set off a tsunami a few hours later that killed many who survived the quake. Despite the devastation, many say the human and economic costs could have been a lot worse given the size of the earthquake, one of the strongest ever recorded in history. In fact, scientists say the 8.8 magnitude quake was so powerful it slightly shifted the Earth's axis and shortened the day by 1.26 microseconds. At a briefing at UN headquarters in New York, UN Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Chief for Humanitarian Affairs Catherine Bragg said the disaster could have been far worse.
Yes, the country is very well prepared. It has one of the strongest building codes, but at the same time, I don't think any country can be prepared for an 8.8 earthquake totally adequately. It is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the 5th most severe earthquake ever recorded in human history. So no matter how prepared you are, there are going to be repercussions from something as big as this. It is true that there are some hospitals that are damaged, some that have collapsed. That's why the government is asking for field hospitals to be put in as the very targeted requirements that they have asked the international community to help with, because they do determine that it is an area that is needed.
For the latest news, we go now to Chile. We're joined by Eva Salinas, the editor of the Santiago Times. She's speaking to us from Santiago. Welcome to Democracy Now! You're not at the epicenter, Eva, of the earthquake, but tell us what you have seen, what have you been reporting, what has the Santiago Times been printing?
Hi there. Well, as you just mentioned, we're about 6 hours, what normally is a 6-hour drive to the epicenter. But of course, Santiago is still affected, and it's unbelievable, the spin-off really from within the city here, what we're seeing is, of course, there was minimal damage to a lot of buildings and severe damage to a few. But what's happening on the outskirts of Santiago, anyway, is a lot of safety and security concerns within some of the poorer comunas, the neighborhoods where there normally aren't a lot of police, and so there's a lot of looting of shops. There's one neighborhood in particular that I've spoken to some residents there that are keeping watch all night long, bonfires on the end of every street because they're still out of power, and this is in Santiago. So all the way down to where the earthquake has hit hardest, it's about a 500-kilometer span where there's been damage and are really, really feeling some strong effects of the quake. Now, right in the center, near the epicenter, Concepcion, Constitucion, Talca, right on the Pacific coast there, communication has been really, really difficult. It's impossible to call by phone, and I did manage to speak with someone there yesterday in Concepcion. He's working as a translator. He told me that it's not maybe a matter of communication in that, you know, the networks are down, even though the electricity is down, but no one can recharge their phone. Maybe all the cell phones are dead just because, you know, they've been out of power since Saturday. But I was able to get in touch with him. He said right now that, you know, when the military descended on Monday, because of all the looting that was going on, it did put a stop to it quite quickly. But there is a curfew in place from 6 p.m. until 12 noon. Most of the arrests are simply because people are out without police permission. So I think the violence and the looting has calmed down. Some of the buildings that were set on fire by looters Sunday and Monday are still burning. People are separated from their families. A lot have moved up onto the hills without water, without food. It's, you know, day 4. They haven't been reached by aid. They don't really know what's going on. So there's an eerie stillness to Concepcion where about 15% of the buildings have actually completely collapsed, and many are on their last legs.
Eva Salinas, what about Bachelet's decision to deploy 14,000 troops to Concepcion?
Well, I think it has helped in terms of the security and safety of the city. Certainly the looting and the bit of the chaos that initially ensued didn't help, you know, to comfort people, but it's not feeding anyone. You know, the necessities that are needed, the water and food, that's still really, really slow to get down there. I think there is a bit of a fear. People, just talking to a lot of people are a bit concerned and puzzled why that took so long. I don't know if it's because there's a fear to be affiliated with of course, the Pinochet era and the military dictatorship, but that's certainly a very strong sentiment in the country, and that runs really, really deep. So I don't know if that was a fear to bring in those troops right away. Of course, the same Navy went to Haiti so quickly, and, you know, took a while to get down there Saturday and Sunday, even to notify those who about the tsunami, of course, which I think could have been expected much, much quicker. Even more powerful earthquake hit in 1960 with a huge tsunami that followed immediately afterwards. So this is a country that has experienced this before and experienced worse.
Finally, what this means in the context of the changing administrations, Michelle Bachelet going out, and that call for her to go to Concepcion?
I'm not sure what it would do for her to go to Concepcion. You know, certainly her presence, she's had a very high approval rating as she leaves office. It's been over 80%. So I think in general people feel comforted by her. The fact that the government's in transition is a huge concern, and I think it's a very unique case in that there are fears, for instance, that are the current members of, for instance, the National Emergency Service, are they giving their 100% when in 1 week's time they may lose their job? So it's going to be very interesting, and we're going to be watching really closely to see how they make that transition. You know, you have President Bachelet going down, you have President-elect Piñera going down. what kind of promises are they both making, and how do you transfer power, and how do you transfer the position such as the Minister of Health to someone who doesn't have perhaps a political background and who's taking on the job for the first time, and I don't know how that's done. It is a big concern, and everyone is going to be watching that really closely.
Eva Salinas, I want to thank you for joining us, editor of the Santiago Times, speaking to us from Santiago, Chile. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. We'll be back in a minute.
Dímelo, 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 dímelo. Hoy es martes, creo, bajo el sol nada nuevo. Ansío mirar el cielo y solo veo rascacielos. Mi pie izquierdo me mira con esa sonrisa entre línea y enseguida empieza uno de esos días, de los que prefieres borrar del calendario, que parecen un calvario de lo fome y rutinario. El mismo uniforme uniformado puesto por todo el vecindario. ¿Será necesario vestirse así a diario? Mientras el diario es su portada, otra modelo enamorada de un famoso con la labia. Pero yo sigo en la fila del metro con la esperanza de un boleto que me lleve ya al desierto, ya que solo tengo mi pie izquierdo con la mala suerte en los bolsillos y sin dinero.